am Lorin. My passage comes from Dickens' Bleak House, Chapter 3, The Progress. In this chapter, Esther Summerson's life story is told. She's been materially provided for, but emotionally neglected by her godmother, as well as the only other person in her life up until that point, Rachel, the housemaid. At the time of our scene, Esther is about 14 years old. Her godmother has just died, and she has just been informed that she has a mysterious benefactor by the name of John Jarndyce, who has made provisions for her admittance to Greenleaf School some distance away. She knows nothing of Mr. Jarndyce, but he appears unbeknownst to her until years later in the carriage that takes her away to her new home in life. I will be reading from the scene in which she first encounters the mysterious Mr. John Jarndyce. This is a pivotal scene because Esther's relationship with Mr. Jarndyce is at the very heart of the novel, and it is a great example of Dickens' masterful use of humor. There was a gentleman in the coach who sat on the opposite seat and looked very large in a quantity of wrappings, but he sat gazing out of the other window and took no notice of me. I thought of my dead godmother, of the night when I read to her, of her frowning so fixedly and sternly in her bed, of the strange place I was going to, of the people I should find there, and what they would be like, and what they would say to me, when a voice in the coach gave me a terrible start. It said, "What the devil are you crying for?" I was so frightened I lost my voice, and could only answer in a whisper, "Me, sir," for of course I knew it must have been the gentleman in the quantity of wrappings, though he was still looking out of his window. "Yes, you," he said, turning round. "I didn't know I was crying, sir," I faltered. "But you are," said the gentleman. "Look here." He came quite opposite to me from the other corner of the coach, brushed one of his large furry cuffs across my eyes, but without hurting me, and showed me that it was wet. "There, now you know you are," he said. "Don't you?" "Yes, sir," I said. "And what are you crying for?" said the gentleman. "Don't you want to go there?" "Where, sir?" "Where? Why, wherever you are going," said the gentleman. "I'm very glad to go there, sir," I answered. "Well, then, look glad," said the gentleman. I thought he was very strange, or at least that what I could see of him was very strange, for he was wrapped up to the chin, and his face was almost hidden in a fur cap with broad fur straps at the side of his head fastened under his chin. But I was composed again and not afraid of him. So I told him I thought I must have been crying because of my godmother's death, and because of Miss Rachel's not being sorry to part with me. "Confound Miss Rachel," said the gentleman. "Let her fly away in a high wind on a broomstick." I began to be really afraid of him now, and I looked at him with the greatest astonishment. But I thought he had pleasant eyes, although he kept on muttering to himself in an angry manner and calling Miss Rachel names. He did not speak to me any more until he got out of the coach a little way short of Reading, when he advised me to be a good girl and to be studious, and shook hands with me. I must say I was relieved by his departure. We left him at a milestone. I often walked past it afterwards, and never for a long time without thinking of him, and half expecting to meet him. But I never did, and so as time went on, he passed out of my mind. When the coach stopped, a very neat lady looked up at the window and said, "Miss Donny." "No, ma'am, Esther Summerson." "That is quite right," said the lady. "Miss Donny." I now understood that she introduced herself by that name, and begged Miss Donny's pardon for my mistake, and pointed out my boxes at her request. Under the direction of a very neat maid, they were put outside a very small green carriage, and then Miss Donny, the maid, and I got inside and were driven away.